Can everyone who's a cast member of Berlin 28 please unmute yourselves? We want to hear you so that we can make this Zoom teleplay thing work.
Zoom call moderator.
My name is Titania, if you must use my name, which is a kind of invasion of my personal space.
Yes, Titania, sorry to butt in, but some of us don't know one another.
Some of us don't even know ourselves, Izzy.
Thank you, Dr. Maimonides, but I'm writing this Zoom teleplay, so I think we should start by briefly introducing everybody who's on the Zoom call.
Good idea, Mr. Zimmerman. My lived experience is that even though we're all on the same Zoom, we might not just see things quite the same way. So why don't we just go through the cast in the order they appear on your screen?
Okay, boomers, I'll call on each of you. Just say your name, a bit about your role in the Zoom teleplay, anything else we should know about you, but keep it brief, very brief. Yehuda HaLevi, why don't you start off?
I am Yehuda HaLevi, Hebrew poet, Arabic philosopher of Andalusia. Born Tudela, Spain, 1075. Died Jerusalem, 1141. 10 years ago, my friend Izzy Zimmerman used his freshly acquired art of time travel to attend my daughter's wedding in Cordoba in the year 1130. 10 years later, while crossing the Mediterranean on my pilgrimage to Jerusalem, I traveled forward 9 centuries and paid Izzy a return visit. I can imagine, it's hard to believe, but there I was in the year of their Lord, 2020, when the corona plague struck, and I found myself trapped in Izzy's Toronto bubble. Just Izzy, his lovely wife Sati, and my own poetic, philosophic self.
Thank you, Yehuda. You were supposed to keep it brief, but you are, after all, a man of words. Which reminds me, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Israel Yitzchak Zimmerman, but everyone knows me as Izzy. I'm a time travel agent. Born Mount Sinai Hospital, Toronto, 1957. To my mind, my chief claim of fame was back in my personal golden age, a history major at Brandeis University in the late 70s, when I played rhythm guitar for our Dylan cover band, The Complete Unknowns. Sati, would you go next?
Blessings, everyone. My name is Sati Zimmerman. I'm Izzy's partner, but that's not who I am. I am a spiritual midwife, formerly known as Shifra.
Thanks, Shifra. I mean Sati. Joni, can you go next?
Sure. I'm Joan Dorothy Earhart, but everyone knows me as Joni. I'm a relational psychotherapist specializing in couples work. My late father was the University of Chicago classicist, Dr. Paul Earhart. Not exactly a claim to fame, but true fact. Back at Brandeis, I sang lead with the Complete Unknowns.
Thanks, Joni. Argo?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jethro Argonaut, but everyone knows me as Argo. Back in college, I was the only science major in the Complete Unknowns. I got my PhD in quantum physics at MIT. Now, I'm a quantum physics toolmaker at Stanford University, working on a quantum drive time travel process. Played drums for the band. I guess you could say I was the one who kept time.
Very droll, Argo. Dr. Maimonides, would you go next?
Hello, everybody. Very glad to be participating in today's call. My name is Dr. Miri Maimonides. I work as court psychiatrist here in Toronto. I also have a private psychotherapy practice with a specialty in helping creative types. I'm working with Izzy as his psychotherapist to help him with some of his personal, creative, and relationship struggles. You could say I'm Izzy's inner travel agent.
Thank you, Dr. Maimonides. And now we call on our distinguished visitor from the 12th century Cairo, Rambam Maimonides. Will you introduce yourself, Doctor?
Salam alaikum. I'm Musa ibn Maimun, Moses ben Maimon, perhaps best known to you 21st centurions as Maimonides. I was born in Cordoba, 1138, fled Andalusia to escape the invading Almohad fundamentalists, and lived most of my life in Cairo. I don't want to blow my own shofar, but I am perhaps the preeminent Jewish philosopher and scholar who ever lived. I also served as Egyptian Jewry's community leader, and professionally am a court physician to the Caliph and was the physician to none other than Saladin. But for the purposes of our Zoom call, I surmise that what you need to know about me is that I'm the founder and director of the Future Prophets Intelligence Project, employing time travel spies to scout out the Jewish future.
That lives only I, the prophetess Devorah. I was born at Bet El, the city of Palm, in 1137 BCE. I am the Bible-only female judge, the Ruth Bader Ginsburg of the Bronze Age. I was recruited by Ben Maimon to be the first woman member of his Future Prophets. And wouldn't you know it, I became that lonesome widower's second wife.
Thank you, everybody. We have folks on this call from Toronto, Chicago, Stanford, and as far away as Cairo in the year 1199. We've got a lot to cover, so let's jump right into scene one.
Salam alaikum, Malawi Yehuda ben Shmuel El Shair.
Salam alaikum, Ra'is. Shalom alayich, Devorah. Ra'is, you gathered us to plan for our upcoming mission. You remember our new recruit from the 5700s, Yitzchak Yisrael ibn Zelig, Izzy?
Yes, I remember. Yitzchak Israel. Yehuda has told me you are praiseworthy on the history of German Jews.
I'm no expert, but as a student of history of Brandeis, I learned the 1001 Nights story of German Jews. Moses Mendelssohn, the Jewish Enlightenment, the invention of Reform Judaism, the academic study of Jewish history, and a century and a half of outstanding achievement until it ended in absolute catastrophe in the Holocaust.
One must not judge an entire golden age of failure because it ended in catastrophe.
Just as one must not judge as negative an entire life just because it ends in death through some terrible disease.
Yehuda, when you delivered your mission proposal, what particularly intrigued me was the future German Jews 40 generations hence. As they look back over all of Jewish history to find a positive model for the German Jewish flowering, saw our age, the Arabic-speaking Jews of Andalusia, as a model golden age.
Of course, Ben Maimon, it flatters your pride that the busy work for posterity on which you men spend all your time to the neglect of your women and the here and now is seen as the great achievement of the so-called golden age. Your guide for the perplexed, Ben Maimon? It's Greek to me. And Yehuda HaLevi, your impenetrable Hebrew poetry? That's not how we Hebrews talks in the Israelite army.
Devorah, try and be forgiving, or at least understanding. Your new husband, Rambam, is not just a great scholar and community leader, but head of the Future Prophets, of which I am grateful to be a member and proud to play my modest part.
You forget, Miriam, of the Future Prophets, I'm a co-commander. Devorah Nevi'ah is one of only 7 female prophets. Can you, Ben Maimon, pass that test?
Fiery woman. Of course, Devorah, we are co-commanders, but it was I who set up the Future Prophets Intelligence Project to scout out the future of the Jewish people, see where we're headed, who we become, and to learn our story. So in the unknown future into which our spies bravely travel, I seek out new future prophets. And the more I learn about German-speaking Jews, the greater my desire to recruit to our team German Jewish prophets from their golden age.
I understand, Ra'is. Looking through Izzy's Brandeis writings and knowing that it takes a philosopher to know a philosopher, Izzy and I found 2 choice future prophets from the golden age of Weimar Germany.
The cultural philosopher Walter Benjamin and the political philosopher Hannah Arendt.
Izzy, tell co-commanders Rambam and Devorah a little about these 2 possible future prophets, what you told me.
Walter Benjamin was a brilliant writer. His memoir, Berlin Childhood around 1900, beautifully captures, through a jump-cut collage of images, growing up as an assimilated, secular, bourgeois German Jew.
So, he did not practice rabbinic Judaism?
So what? Neither did I.
Do you understand my cultural references?
Go on, I'm learning as you speak.
Okay. In the intellectual hothouse of Weimar, Germany, Walter Benjamin wrote prolifically literary criticism, translations into German of French literature, insightful observations on everyday life in 1920s Berlin. He was friends with the Marxist playwright Bertolt Brecht and the Kabbalah scholar Gershom Scholem.
Why would he make a good future prophet?
In 1936, living in Paris in exile from Nazi Germany,
I can relate to that. I live in Cairo, in exile from Al-Muhad, Andalusia.
that's when he wrote his most famous essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. He analyzed the impact on art of the new technologies of his time, radio, photography, movies. But his thinking was prescient, almost prophetic. It is relevant to us 21st centurians as we grapple with the work of culture in the age of digital transmission.
And the second choice, the woman?
Hannah Arendt came from the same upper-class, highly educated German Jewish milieu. She was even related to Benjamin through her first marriage to his cousin, Gunther Andres. She studied with the leading German philosophers of the day, superstar Martin Heidegger and Karl Jaspers. Like Benjamin, with the rise of Hitler, she fled Germany in 1933 for exile in Paris, where she worked for Youth Aliyah, preparing young people for agricultural work in Palestine.
Palestine? Where's that, Yehuda?
Eretz Israel, the land of Israel.
Oh, agriculture in Eretz Israel. A woman after my heart. I myself like to render judgment under a palm tree.
It's a lot more complicated than that, prophetess.
We could certainly use more women on the future prophets.
Hannah was a first-wave feminist. She had nothing against men. Indeed, she passionately loved men her whole life. She just wanted to go head-to-head as an equal in the male world political philosophy.
Amen to that. I struggle to make my voice heard. The prophet business is a boys' club, and I value that Hannah worked hands-on and not talk, right, like Ben Maimon.
Not exactly. Like Benjamin, Hannah was a big talker and a prolific writer. But unlike Benjamin, Hannah fled Europe just in the nick of time and reached safety in America.
America? What's that, Yehuda?
Brave new world in the far, far west.
In America, she wrote many books that brought her fame.
And notoriety. It's a complicated story, her relationship to her German high culture and to her Jewish identity.
But that very complexity makes her an ideal Golden Age candidate for Rambam's team of future prophets.
Precisely. So under the mission leadership of Yehuda HaLevi, perhaps our finest cultural spy, I charge you to learn more about these outlandish future Jews. Use disguise. Assume identities. Come to know these children of Israel. See if they're worthy to be part of our sacred mission.
We can't just understand them through their minds. Look into their hearts.
Final words to HaLevi. Devorah?
ליבי לחוקקי ישראל המתנדבים בעם. My heart is with Israel's leader, with the dedicated of the people.
Chazak ve'emat, spies. The Zoom call will consume itself in 5 seconds.
Are you excited to be on our mission, Izzy?
I'm a little afraid. Yehuda HaLevi, Rambam Maimonides, I'm not in their league.
Yehuda HaLevi invited you on his future prophets mission.
Yehuda's just my friend. I'm no time travel spy.
They need you to guide them. Their unknown future is to you known history.
Hope it's not a delusion.
No, Izzy, your big break. Weimar Jews' golden age. Where will this job take you?
Peak Golden Age Berlin in 1928. Then in exile, Paris in the 1930s. And then, after the war, meet them at turning points.
And what is your approach?
Walter Benjamin's thought is inspired by archives, that a work lives on in its reception, criticism, reproduction.
Go on.
We'll treat the life and work of Walter and Hannah as itself the archive, how it's received, critiqued, brought to life in this play.
A big mission, Izzy.
I'm not sure I know how.
Izzy, you make to learn. This spy job is a way to understand the past, understand their future, understand your present, help you know who you are.
I need your help, Doctor. I think I get Walter. To understand Hannah?
Because I'm a woman?
Yes, woman in a man's world. Affairs of the heart, psychoanalysis. I can't do this alone.
Happy to help, Izzy. You and Rambam's mission. Believe in the mission, Izzy. Believe in yourself.
Welcome, everybody, to what I'm sure will be a very special Complete Unknowns Reunion Tour Zoom. You all know my friend Yehuda HaLevi, but I want to introduce you to Dr. Miri Maimenbaum. She's my
Psychotherapist
who will be joining us on this time travel secret mission.
Izzy has told me so much about his old Brandeis College friends that I feel like I know you already. Perhaps the silver lining of this pandemic is that through the magic of Zoom, we can connect over great distances and bring old friends together, if only virtually.
And if my experiment goes as planned, we can use the magic of quantum physics to connect over temporal distances.
I'm so grateful that you have answered my plea for help and have agreed to join me. I know that having been bandmates in the Complete Unknowns back in the 70s doesn't exactly qualify us for this unorthodox mission. But thanks to Kabbalah, the Sufi twirling techniques of Sati, the music theory of Joni, and the psychotropic drugs provided by yours truly, a portal to Argo's quantum neuronal time travel has been opened.
Don't look at me. Honestly, I feel like the Wizard of Oz and his hot air balloon. I don't know how it works. But the only way I can prove that it works is to experiment with real live people.
And Izzy has chosen you for this mission.
Perhaps the study of history is itself a form of time travel, bringing the past into the present.
Bayamim hahem bazman hazeh, in those days, at this time.
Whatever it is, was, or will be, Izzy's time travel is what has enabled Rambam's future prophet's mission.
Well, okay, Izzy, you persuaded us to join this experiment. I'm all in. How will it work, and what's our role?
I will let Yehuda start to lay out our mission.
I invited Izzy to be a future prophet in training. Ever since Rambam heard about the golden age of German Jews that Izzy talks about so fervently, Rambam wants to recruit future prophets from that golden age. Ben Maimon asked me to lead the recruiting mission. To help me with his knowledge of cultural history, I recruited Izzy. And Izzy has enlisted his friends to help him.
My research identified 2 candidates to investigate to see if they're worthy future prophets: Walter Benjamin and Hannah Arendt. To prepare for our mission, I sent around an archive of material on both candidates: biographies, excerpts from their books and articles about them and their time, and from their own writings.
Perhaps you can tell us, what are the criteria for being a future prophet?
Joni, I am so glad you asked. For my 50th anniversary bar mitzvah, I researched and presented on this very topic.
Oy vey, here comes a sermon.
I'm curious to know. Go on, Izzy.
The Guide for the Perplexed was written by Maimonides in Arabic in 1190. It was the greatest fruit of the Andalusian Golden Age Enlightenment. In his masterpiece, Rambam treats revelation not as an alternative to reason, as a source of knowledge about our world. Rather, revelation is an achievement of reason itself. Rambam applies Aristotelian thinking to reinterpret Torah by the application of reason. So his understanding of prophecy is non-supernatural.
Nu, are you going to summarize?
First, prophecy is natural, not miraculous. Second, prophecy is a human achievement, not a divine initiative. Finally, a prophet is a superlative human being, but not more than that.
So what is a prophet?
Rambam teaches a prophet has 3 things: balanced moral qualities, a powerful imagination, and intellectual perfection. A prophet is, therefore, a regular human being who is a blend of a saint, one with a balanced moral qualities, artist, one with a powerful imagination, and philosopher, one who strives for intellectual perfection. Any person, man or woman, who brings all the rich resources of their humanity to its fullest realization may become a prophet.
So that is who we are looking for.
Tough order to fill. So are we just going to go back in time and drop in for an interview?
No, quantum neuronal time travel doesn't work like that. It's more like a literary costume ball. Do you remember how in junior year at Brandeis we all got dressed up for Halloween? But instead of Ziggy Stardust and Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, we assume the identities of people from that era.
You, Joni, will play Hannah Arendt.
It's a big role, Joni, but as lead singer of The Complete Unknowns and a lifetime of relational counseling, I think you can carry it off.
You, Dr. Maimenbaum, have the role of Anna Freud.
We keep you in character, in the healing profession.
Thank you, Yehuda. I relish that role.
What about me?
You, Sati, have 2 roles. In 1928, you will play Asya Lasses,
The Latvian communist actress and theater director with whom Benjamin was involved. He saw her as his muse. He was so in love, he dedicated to her his book, One Way Street.
This is an important role, Izzy.
To be honest, in 1928, you have just a walk-on role.
Oh, great. I play a one-way streetwalker?
But in September 26, 1940, the night Benjamin takes a morphine overdose on the French-Spanish border, you play a more divine kind of muse, Cleo, the muse of history.
You, Argo, will be on the 1963 leg of the mission. You will play Gidon Hausner.
Hausner was the Attorney General of Israel, who, in the 1961 Eichmann trial in Jerusalem, served as the chief prosecutor.
It's a great role, but I'm a physicist, not a lawyer. I study math-based laws of the universe that bring an order of rational meaning out of chaos. I don't like to deal with the messy language-based laws created by humans to govern themselves.
Your role, Argo, is not really about law, but to apply your considerable mental and logical powers to the technique of cross-examination. We need to clarify Hannah Arendt's position in light of her book, Eichmann in Jerusalem.
And you, Izzy?
Izzy will play Walter Benjamin.
Benjamin's thought is inspired by the concept of the archive. So we apply that for both Walter Benjamin and Hannah Arendt. Their work, their life, is itself the archive, and it is through our understanding that we bring them to life. But we do it through a contemporary work, this Zoom teleplay, which blazes in its currentness.
It's not a simple acting role, especially for amateurs like us. People are shaped by their upbringing, their education, and the larger cultural around them.
Exactly. We don't just put on costumes. We assume the identities which we are assigned. From within those assumed identities, Dr. HaLevi and Maimonides can determine if the candidates meet Rambam's criteria for future prophets.
Cool. Okay, Izzy, you're the time travel agent. What's the itinerary?
First stop, Berlin 1928, peak German Jewish Golden Age. In January 1928, Judah Magnus visited Berlin. Magnus was the San Francisco-born Reform rabbi who was chancellor of Hebrew University in Jerusalem since its opening in 1925. He and Benjamin, in fact, had a 2-hour interview, the contents of which are unknown. That interview will be an opportunity to see Benjamin at one of the high points of his life. Judah Magnus's identity will be assumed by Yehuda HaLevi. He will be accompanied by Anna Freud, daughter of Sigmund. While in Berlin, they can both also interview a young Hannah Arendt.
And then?
Next stop is 10 years later, in Paris, 1938, where both Walter and Hannah are living in exile, friends, and a part of a larger circle of German émigrés living in France. In February 1938, Walter's best friend, Gershom Scholem, passes through Paris and paid him one of his last visits. The golden age of the 1920s was long past, and Europe was hurtling down the narrowing, darkening tunnel of the 1930s. It was the last time Gershom Scholem met Benjamin.
And then?
Yehuda wants to pay a visit of consolation to Walter in September 1940, up on the French-Spanish border, when Walter fails to escape from France.
And what of Hannah Arendt? Does she get a visit of consolation as well?
No, she must pass the gauntlet of cross-examination for her book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, and the years of notoriety after it was published in New York in 1963.
And by then we'll know?
By then, we should know.
Yalla, shall we proceed?
Everybody who's in this scene, unmute. We need to hear Mr. HaLevi and Mr. Zimmerman and Dr. Maimonides. And can you all put on as your virtual background the Berlin 1928 cafe scene?
Yalla. Shall we proceed? Herr Benjamin, it is a pleasure to meet you here in Berlin at last. Your dear friend Gerhard Scholem in Jerusalem, will not stop singing your praises. I wish to acquaint myself with you, to see whether you might be a suitable candidate for a professorship at the new School of Humanities we are establishing at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem.
To obtain a professorship at your esteemed university, of which Gerhard is so rightly proud, would be the realization of a dream I have had since 1919, when I completed my PhD at Bern on the concept of art criticism in German Romanticism.
Do you see yourself as an art critic, a social historian?
For now, I am charting my path as an independent critic. I aim to get at the truth of our times by devotion to an ideal expressed in Goethe, to set out the facts in such a way that the facts will be their own theory.
At the Psychoanalytical Institute, we also aim for theory to emerge from the facts of one's life.
Allow me to introduce Miss Anna Freud. She has graciously joined us from Vienna to aid me in the recruitment interviews I'm conducting here in Berlin.
A great honor to meet you, Fräulein Freud. The new Viennese psychoanalytical investigations are expanding our understanding of the human mind, though I prefer mankind's literary and political dimensions.
And in what practical form, Herr Benjamin, do you put your investigations?
My newest book, just published this month, Einbahnstraße, One-Way Street, pioneers a new form, a series of Denkbild, figures of thought, assembled jump-cut montage styles borrowed from the artistic techniques of cinema that analyzes the filling station, the building site, the war memorial, and their meaning in Berlin of our day.
And are you prepared to exchange Berlin of our day for Jerusalem that we are today rebuilding? Of course, you will have to learn Hebrew. Are you prepared to do that?
Oh, yes. My career is grounded in the philosophy of language. Last year, I translated from French a volume of Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time, into German, of course.
The university might be willing to fund your study of Hebrew here in Berlin in anticipation of your coming to join us in Jerusalem.
Oh, such funding would be most graciously appreciated, as the life of an independent critic is so often short of funds.
And do you consider yourself a Zionist, Herr Benjamin?
I affirm my solidarity with the reconstruction work in Palestine. As distinguished from political and national Zionism, I'm a cultural Zionist.
And does this spring from your upbringing here in Berlin?
Oh, Himmel, nein. We were Deutsche in the street and Deutsche at home. But in my undergraduate studies in Berlin, I came to understand, mostly through my friendship with Gerhard Scholem, that my Jewishness meant a commitment to the furtherance of European culture. For me, Judaism is in no sense an end unto itself, but the most distinguished bearer and representative of the spiritual.
We see the university's new Department of the Humanities very much grounded in that spirit, and are therefore seeking teachers of French and German literature.
Just this month, after years of delay, Rowohlt Verlag finally published my book, Treuspiel, The Origin of German Tragic Drama.
2 books in the same month. Congratulations, Herr Benjamin. But what exactly is Treuspiel?
Treuspiel is a German play of mourning, derived from classical Greek tragedy. However, the fall of its hero is not the Greek protagonist's struggle against his fate, but a spectacle of German sorrow.
And do you, Herr Benjamin, struggle against your fate? What attracts you to the subject?
It is not the content of the tragedy, but its material expression in the form of theater. Have you not noticed how our politics have become a form of theater? Street theater, of May Day demonstrations and torchlight marches. Last year's Nuremberg rally was nothing so much as a Wagnerian opera, with its declamations, its hypnotic music, mass choreography. Politics is not a debate, but public theater.
Perhaps, Herr Benjamin, your thinking about theater has been influenced by your, would you call her your muse? The Latvian communist actress and theater director, Asja Lassis?
May I know how you come to know of her?
Come, Herr Benjamin, it's hardly a secret. Your book, One-Way Street, is dedicated not to your wife, Dora, the mother of your son, but here, let me read the dedication. This street is named Asja Lassis Street, after she, who, as an engineer, cut it through the author?
Since I met Asya on the magical Isle of Capri 3 summers ago, I cannot deny the hold she has on me. I must confess to you, Miss Freud, every time I have experienced a great love, I have undergone a change so fundamental that I have amazed myself. A genuine love makes me resemble the woman I love.
So, have you converted, so to speak, from cultural Zionism to Marxism in order to marry Frau Lassis?
There is no question here of marriage. And besides, Asya is already married to a Moscow theater director. But surely her positions are beside the point. It is I who seek to apply for the professorship at the Hebrew University.
Of course, as a first step, you'll need to provide letters of recommendation from respected academics here in Germany and complete your study of Hebrew as a necessary prerequisite.
Of course. And if you have any concerns about Frau Lassis, she is in Berlin from Moscow to visit her colleague Bertolt Brecht. I ask Asya to join me after our meeting. Perhaps you'll stay and have a chance to meet her for yourself.
Much as I am curious to meet your engineering muse, I'm afraid I must go. So I wish you a good day, Herr Benjamin, and we shall correspond further by post.
Herr Benjamin, may I speak frankly of your personal affairs?
You may, of course.
It seems with Frau Lassis, you are a participant in a love triangle.
I prefer my muses in triangles, in competition with another man for the bed of the whispering oracle, whose marriage vows permit an almost famous writer to be her lover.
It seems you are erotically and perversely drawn to getting what you want, only when it is impossibly associated with the frustration of other wishes. That path leads to melancholy. But I believe here comes Frau Lassis now. Shall I stay?
If you wish. Asya, over here. Asya, allow me to introduce you to Anna Freud of the Psychoanalytic Institute of Vienna.
You treat the neurotic bourgeois women of Vienna, Miss Freud?
Actually, my psychoanalytical practice is with children.
My concern is not with the pampered children of the capitalist bourgeoisie. I have created a proletarian children's theater. I wield my art as a tool of progress.
The psychoanalytical treatment of children is also a form of progress, though my work is dedicated not to a political or economic aim, but the goal of truth.
Asya, I just completed a most fruitful meeting with Judah Magnus, Chancellor of Hebrew University in Jerusalem. They may offer me a job as teacher of French and German literature.
The path of thinking progressive persons in their right senses leads to Moscow, not to Palestine. True dialectical thinking demands you abandon all traces of idealism in your thought, to say nothing of your flirtation with Zionism.
Waiter, may I have the bill, please?
Joni, you're in this scene. Can you unmute? And Joni, can you put in your virtual background the Berlin 1928 cafe scene?
And so now, I am at the University of Heidelberg, working to complete my doctoral thesis on the concept of love in the thought of Saint Augustine.
Is that a PhD topic for a nice Jewish girl?
I've risen above all that. I've adopted the thinking of my two great philosophy teachers, Martin Heidegger, my undergraduate professor at University of Marburg, and my thesis supervisor, Karl Jaspers.
These are indeed two of Germany's finest philosophers. What is your interpretation of the concept of love?
St. Augustine deals with three concepts of die Liebe: love between man and the Creator, love thy neighbor as thyself, and love as craving or desire.
Most interesting topic, Hannah, love. At the Psychoanalytic Institute in Vienna, our research finds adult love is rooted in a child's family life, the Oedipal love of a child for their parent of the opposite sex.
My father died of syphilis when I was 7. And when I was 12, my mother remarried an older man with 2 evil stepdaughters. What does your famous father's science make of that?
Perhaps your cutting remark is rooted in girlhood trauma. Freudian theory would say you would seek out a strong male father figure.
Fräulein Arendt, I wish to return our conversation to its original intent. After you complete your doctorate, might you consider joining the new School of Humanities we are establishing at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem?
Leave behind the greatest universities in the world for a Levantine agricultural colony?
On the contrary, Fräulein Arendt, the Hebrew University in Jerusalem is the flowering of the German Jewish Enlightenment. Our board of governors includes Albert Einstein, Sigmund Freud, and Martin Buber. We are recruiting the cream of German universities for our faculty. Indeed, just this morning, we had an interview with the Berlin literary critic, Walter Benjamin. Perhaps you know his work?
I heard of his book. Actually, I am going out these days with a cousin of Walter. Both Gunther and I were students of Heidegger and Margot. And no, Fräulein Freud, you needn't worry. Gunther is far from a strong male father figure. We plan to marry. And you will be glad to know, Dr. Magnus, that he comes from a nice bourgeois Berlin Jewish family.
Fräulein, Frau Arendt, far be it from me to make this about your personal life. As Chancellor of Hebrew University, my sole intent is to recruit the finest intellects. I admire German institutes of higher learning. I myself received my PhD in Semitics from Heidelberg after studying in Berlin's Hochschule für Wissenschaft der Judentum, the Institute of Higher Learning for the Scientific Study of Judaism. So I wonder, is there no way you might consider yourself coming to Jerusalem?
Perhaps I have been facetious. I have nothing against Juden. I am thinking about a project after I complete my thesis, and I am fascinated by the figure of Rachel Wernhagen.
And who might that be?
She is like us, Anna, a German-speaking Jewish woman making a place for herself in a world run by men. In 18th century Berlin, she ran the most dazzling German intellectual salon of the era. She is a role model to me, and I hope to write about her life.
A message for Hannah Arendt.
One moment, please. Please excuse me. I must hurry off to an urgent meeting with a friend, a colleague. Auf Wiedersehen.
That is no doubt a message from Professor Martin Heidegger, with whom she is involved in a passionate, secret affair.
But did she not say she's engaged to be married?
I'm afraid Hannah refuses to be bound by the rules of bourgeois morality. Heidegger, that magician of being and time, has her cast under his spell. He gives an order that they must now meet, and she must obey. She is consumed by St. Augustine's third kind of love, craving and desire.
Miri, you are Anna Freud again. It's 1938. You accidentally, on purpose, bump into Hannah Arendt in Paris. If you could both put on your virtual background, the Paris 1930 street scene, that'd be great.
Fräulein Freud, is that you?
Yes, I am Anna Freud. Are we acquainted?
You may not remember me, but we met years ago in Berlin at an interview conducted by Dr. Yehuda Maimonides.
But of course, you were the young woman studying the philosophic nature of love. That was 10 years ago. I trust you have found the answer by now?
Berlin 1928 was not just 10 years ago. It was a lifetime ago.
Do you live in Paris then?
Yes. I left Germany in 1933 after Hitler came to power, after a police interrogation, and after learning that my professor, the Wunderkind of German philosophy, had joined the Nazi Party.
Martin Heidegger. He was appointed rector of Freiburg University, was he not?
Yes, yes. He dismissed Jews from the faculty. He put his intellectual prestige at the service of the Führer. His speech on being appointed rector shamefully aligned the university with the Nazi regime. I could never forgive him, never. I fled Germany and ended up in Paris.
And in Paris, are you still pursuing your philosophical inquiries?
I've left all that behind. If the greatest philosopher in Germany can become a Nazi party member, I'll have nothing to do with philosophy. I now believe in action more than words. But what brings you to Paris, Frau Freud?
Passage through. After the Anschluss, and after I was taken to Gestapo headquarters in Vienna for questioning, my father finally accepted the urgent need to leave. We are headed for our new home in London.
A new home in exile.
Yes. But we have our work. I must care for Papa. He's ill with jaw cancer. And your husband, is he here with you in Paris?
We divorced some time past. We were too much alike. But I am not alone. Married a soulmate, a fellow anti-fascist. So many German emigres here in Paris who fled their land of birth. The neurologist Fritz Frankl, the painter Karl Heidenreich, the thinker Walter Benjamin, Jews, communists, writers. Being surrounded by one's language, that is home.
And your work involves language?
I'm no longer all talk, no action. I work as a secretary with Agriculture et Artisanat and with Youth Aliyah, preparing Jewish youth for a new life on kibbutzim in Palestine.
You sound a changed woman, not escaping your race.
The dark times thrust upon me my Jewishness. So now I seek universal humanity from the perspective of my own particularity, like my heroine, Rachel Varnhagen, whose biography I have almost completed. I end my book with Varnhagen's deathbed quote: "The thing which all my life seemed to me the greatest shame, which was the misery and misfortune of my life, having been born a Jewess, this I should on no account now wish to have missed."
We left our land of birth, but surely Thanatos' deathbed confessions are premature, Frau Arendt. You seem to be full of eros, that passionate drive of life, love, creativity, and sexuality. That will sustain you.
If only world history were not so awful, it would be a joy to live.
Mr. Zimmerman, you're back on. Can you unmute, please? And can both you and Mr. HaLevi put on that virtual background? I called it Walter's Paris apartment, Rue d'Ambal, in the 15th arrondissement. And I'm just going to share a screen here. One moment. Okay, you're both on.
Walter, I see you hang the Paul Klee painting in your new apartment.
Angel of history is with me in all my wandering. At last I have a room of my own where she can hang in peace. And soon my library of abandoned books, only now do I notice how deep the need for them has lain buried in me, will arrive from their makeshift home with Brecht in Denmark.
That very name, Bertolt Brecht, it's like a wedge in our decades-long friendship, Walter. I blame Brecht for sullying your brilliant mind with Marxist dogma.
My Marxism is not dogma, Gerhardt, but heuristic, a language that enables one to learn for oneself.
The addition of a Marxist agenda has clouded your brilliant observations in the work of art in the age of its technological reproduction.
Why criticize the one piece of writing in years under my own name that has gained any traction beyond the pitiful readership of German emigre journals?
I come not to bury that work, but to rescue it. I love your acute observation. Free-floating contemplation of a work of art, like your Paul Klee painting with its evocative aura, is replaced in today's mass-produced illustrated journals by photographs, each with its obligatory caption, as you say, written signposts that direct the viewer, so different than the open-ended title of an original painting. But those kind of brilliant illuminations on the effect of photography, radio, and film are obscured by your forward and afterward, which frame it all in stock phrases of severe exploitation of proletarian masses. I blame that on Brecht's pernicious influence.
Gerhardt, Brecht's Marxism is just a translation of the metaphysical and theological perspectives you and I have always discussed, but in language cleansed of all magic. Just like Buber's translation of the Hebrew Bible, the current time in which it is written forces the translator to use German phrases that are symptomatic of our age.
How could you even compare Martin Buber's profound Torah translation to Bertolt Brecht's agitprop?
Bertolt Brecht is my friend too, Gerhardt. He welcomes me to his exile home in Denmark. Besides, I am sustained these days almost solely on the support of the Institute of Social Research. How far can I scribble outside the lines drawn by Horkheimer and Theodore Adorno of New York? I am a proletarian of writing, a worker, a cog in the written means of production. I cannot bite the hand that feeds me.
But the Institute, it's careful to distance itself from the Communist Party. Where is your denunciation of the Moscow show trials?
I confess, the trials, fascist victories in Spain, Anschluss in Austria, the Arab revolt in Palestine, anti-Semitism in France, even among the leftist intelligentsia. Did you see their reception of Céline's diatribe, Trifles for a Massacre? And my penurious existence here in Paris, it's all driving me ever deeper into despondency.
You should have come to join me in Jerusalem, Walter. You took Magnus money for Hebrew lessons and spent it instead on a Berlin apartment for you and that Lassus woman, which drove the nail into the coffin of your marriage with Dora.
I'm afraid that Asya has been caught up in the Moscow madness. Last year, she was interned in Kazakhstan.
And yet you cling to Marxist theories.
Not fully. Not more than you cling to the messianic redemption of Zion, the magical realism of Kabbalah. But I confess, dark times have stripped from my view of history the Marxist messianic belief in progress. I have begun a new work, a collection of theses on the philosophy of history, a critique of historicism, that history progresses towards some desirable ending point. And its starting point is that painting which hangs above my head, Angelus Novus. Here, you could read what I have written.
The clay painting, named Angelus Novus, shows an angel looking as though she is about to move away from something she is fixedly contemplating. Her eyes are staring, her mouth is open, her wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. Her face is turned toward the past. Where we perceive a chain of events, she sees one single catastrophe which keeps piling wreckage upon wreckage and hurls it in front of her feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in her wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. This storm irresistibly propels her into the future to which her back is turned, while the pile of debris before her grows skyward. This storm is what we call progress.
Sati, you're in the scene. Do you have on your Greek goddess outfit? Here, maybe I'll read the stage instructions. Walter Benjamin's tiny hotel room in Port Boo, Spanish Pyrenees Mountains. Midnight. He is roused by a light in the room. At a desk sits Yehuda HaLevi, writing. Beside him stands Cleo, holding an open scroll. The scroll looks like the scrolls of the hair of Clay's Angelus Novus, the angel of history. Cleo is whispering in Yehuda HaLevi's ear. And action.
Who are you?
I am Cleo.
Do I know you?
I have spoken to you before, from the arcades of Baudelaire's Paris, from among the sorrows of young Werther.
Are you human?
Not exactly. My mother was Mnemosyne, Titan goddess of memory, inventress of language and words.
Ah, then you're one of the 9 muses.
Yes, the firstborn of memory, the muse of history.
And into whose ear were you just now whispering?
Alawi Yehuda ben Shmuel al-Sha'ir, Yehuda HaLevi, come from a distant past, and yet as a prophet, I have seen the future. My friend, I know for a certainty what happens. You, Walter Benjamin, with your brilliance and your mastery of language, prophetic prescience, you can never know.
The Institute arranged a visa to enter the United States. I even had a transit visa for Spain and Portugal. All that I lacked was an exit visa for France. But without it, I cannot escape one exile for another. I foresee that today the Spanish border guards will send me back to occupied France. My life's chain of events keeps piling wreckage upon wreckage and hurls it in front of my feet.
That is why we are here, just Cleo and I, just after Tisha B'Av, in the year since creation, 5700.
To bring me salvation?
La. Tisha B'Av commemorates the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem by the Romans in the year 70. There was no reprieve for the harsh decree then. And for my golden age travel to the 5700s, I have come to know Tisha B'Av will also commemorate the expulsion of the Jews of Spain in 1492. There will be no reprieve for the harsh decree then either.
Verstehen. There is no reprieve for the harsh decree facing me now. I must leave this current exile for my 7th and final exile.
The seventh and eternal exile.
Then why, in my midnight darkness, have you come here?
For 7 weeks following Tisha B'Av, Jews chant prophetic poems of consolation.
We come to bring you consolation.
Isaiah, Yeshayahu. Comfort, O comfort my people. Awake, awake, O Zion. For the sake of Zion I shall not be silent. For the sake of Jerusalem I will not be still.
All flesh is grass, its goodness like flowers of the field. Grass withers, flowers fade, but the word of God is always fulfilled.
I shall not have a deathbed conversion. I was born a secular German Jew, and I shall die by my own hand, a secular German Jew.
Fear not ancient prophecy, it is all only words.
My suicide will stop up the pen I long held to write my mitnaged prophecy of a secular God that failed. I die in obscurity, all alone. In the long run-on sentence of German Jewry, my death will not even be a footnote.
There you are wrong, Walter. That is the consolation we bring to you. Your work so burns with the intensity of your currentness that, as you yourself prophesied, such work lives on in its translation, its reception, in commentary and criticism, and in its reproduction. We are doing all of that in this play, Walter.
My mother, Memory, called me Cleo from the Greek verb kleo, to make famous, to celebrate. Even though you die in obscurity, Walter Benjamin, your name will be famous. You will become a kind of celebrity.
Your essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction, will be taught in art schools, prophesying the digital revolution. You'll be the patron saint of lost causes, outcasts, and misfits, characterized as a radical interpreter of Judaic tradition, the exemplar of the Jewish German intellectual. And as Weimar's sunset faded into the nightmare of history, you went darkly into that dark night.
Sleep now, Walter. I will sing you a lullaby. Ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin, ani ma'amin. Be'emuna shelema, beviat hamashiach, beviat hamashiach ani ma'amin. And even though the Messiah tarries, in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart.
Joni, can you put on your old-fashioned headphones for translation? And switch your background from Paris 1938 to Jerusalem courtroom, Eichmann trial? Argo, you're on as Gideon Hausner, Israel's Attorney General, Chief Prosecutor of Eichmann in 1961.
But it's not 1961, right?
Correct. It's 1963, the year Hannah's famous book came out on the banality of evil. Dr. Maimonbaum, you are acting for Hannah's defense. Everybody ready?
And do you, Hannah Arendt, swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Mr. Hausner, I am known as a fearless truth teller.
Answer the question.
You need not worry, Mr. Hausner. I was educated in the finest institutions of European learning, where dedication to truthfulness is a paramount value.
Let the record show the witness will not so swear.
I am not on trial for any crime, and so I will not have my bona fides doubted by an unsympathetic Galician Jew who dances to the tune called by Ben-Gurion. I have only consented to come back to Jerusalem to defend my sterling reputation against unfounded hysterical attacks.
Miss Arendt, you were on trial in the court of public opinion for your book Eichmann in Jerusalem. You attended sessions of the trial in 1961 as a correspondent for the New Yorker, and yet, even after the trial conclusively proved that Eichmann coordinated the mass transport of hundreds of thousands of European Jews to their organized murder, Eichmann represented for you the banality of evil.
I never denied the facts. I even approved of the death sentence meted out by the Israeli judges. But what you and others call my defense of Eichmann is rooted in my philosophical analysis of the origins of totalitarianism. I was struck by how an ordinary person, not an evil monster, could be compelled by the rules and circumstances of a totalitarian system to carry out such actions. Trying to understand is not the same as forgiveness.
Perhaps you were merely trying to understand, but your understanding never extended to the Jewish victims. The assertion in your book that the Judenrat, the local Jewish community leaders appointed by the Germans by cooperating with the Nazi authorities, were complicit in the Holocaust. Does that reveal understanding of the dilemmas the Jews faced at the time? Were not they too compelled by the rules and circumstances of a totalitarian system to carry out such actions?
Mr. Hausner, as counsel for the defense, may I interject on behalf of the accused?
Go ahead, Ms. Freud.
Hannah's attacks on the Judenrat emerge less from the historical record than from her own deeply conflicted relation to Judaism, seeing herself, as she does, as a scholarly representative of German high culture. This, combined with her haughty coldness and her condescension towards non-German Ostjuden, explain more about what underlies her book's treatment of the trial than any abstract notions of truth.
I was present in the courtroom at that televised show trial. I saw Eichmann with my own eyes. He displayed neither guilt for his actions nor hatred for those trying him. He denied responsibility because he was only obeying orders. Indeed, he was obeying the law of the land at that time, and I had a duty to report the truth of what went on in that courtroom.
So there you were, reporting on the world's very first event to give a voice to Holocaust victims who told their harrowing stories, but your report displayed no sympathy to their experience.
Hannah was hired to cover the trial as a philosopher, not a journalist. Her commitment was to truth, as she saw it.
Commitment to truth. Her New Yorker articles implied that she was an eyewitness to the trial. She never mentioned that she only attended several sessions. While Eichmann was being cross-examined, she was vacationing in Basel. She wrote her report based mostly on written transcripts.
Perhaps Hannah's reporting was inadequate journalism, but even shoddy journalism is no crime.
Mr. Hausner, your strategy of bringing in sobbing testimony of Jewish victims had nothing to do with a legal prosecution of Adolf Eichmann. It was simply part of Ben-Gurion's goal of conducting a show trial for the Israeli public, education of the Jewish masses to the Zionist party line. And I have been turned into a pariah simply for my fearless commitment to the truth. It is not my book's philosophical arguments, but my character which is under attack.
You have not been accused of a crime, Miss Arendt. The trial is in the court of public opinion. But since you present yourself publicly using your personal identity as a Jew who fled Nazi Germany, a Jewish public intellectual whose life was shaped by being a persecuted refugee, it is only fair game that your own conduct, your own positions and attitudes be considered. Your friend, your former friend, the Kabbalah scholar Gershom Scholem, called out for your lack of achavat Yisrael, love of the Jewish people.
I am not moved by that kind of love. In my life, I have not loved any people or collective, not the German people, nor the French, nor the American, nor the working class, or anything of that sort. I love only my friends. The kind of love I believe in is the love of persons.
Hannah wrote her PhD thesis at Heidelberg on love and St. Augustine. And St. Augustine does not recognize as a love category Ahavat Yisrael.
So you can love some people, just not the Jewish people.
I never denied the fact I am a Jew, a proud secular humanist German Jew. I researched and wrote a whole book on Rahel Varnhagen, subtitled The Life of a Jewish Woman. Indeed, I have come to see her as my alter ego. As author, I allowed her to die a peaceful death, reconciling the tension that governed her life. The thing which all my life seemed to me the greatest shame, which was the misery and misfortune of my life, having been born a Jewess, this I should on no account now wish to have missed. Like her, I am a Jew and a pariah. Only because she clung to both conditions did she find a place in the history of European humanity.
So you identify with Rahel Varnhagen?
I just told you that I did.
And you're a fearless truth teller, are you not?
Yes.
Then, why does your biography of Varnhagen end with that misleading quote that makes it seem like she died a Jew? Why did you omit those pieces of Varnhagen's correspondence where she confirms her conversion to Christianity?
This trial is about my book, Eichmann in Jerusalem, not some biography I wrote in exile in Paris about a single individual. I am a political theorist. Theory allows me to say something enduring about the collective struggle of humanity in the face of unprecedented violence of the 20th century.
I'd like to change the subject of our inquiry. In responding to allegations that you exonerate Eichmann because he claimed he was only following orders, you have told the court that trying to understand is not the same as forgiveness.
Yes, that is so. Trying to understand is not the same as forgiveness.
Then I want to take you back 13 years, not to Jerusalem, but to Freiburg, Germany in 1950. Less than 5 years after the war, you were sent from America to post-war Germany as director of the Commission of European Jewish Cultural Reconstruction to recover 1.5 million volumes of Judaica appropriated by the Germans, which they euphemistically referred to as ownerless. Gershom Scholem performed the same task in Czechoslovakia.
Where are you going with this, Mr. Hausner?
In February 1950, you arrived in Freiburg and made contact with Martin Heidegger, who is now a disgraced professor living in the shadow of his failed denazification process. You sought him out, met with him and his wife Elfriede, and let him convince you that he was not an unrepentant Nazi, but an aging man broken by vicious slander and accusations of trespasses he had neither committed nor even known about, maligned and vilified merely because, as you reported to your friend Karl Jaspers, some devil had possessed him.
It was chiefly his wife Elfriede who was to blame.
And you spent the next 10 years and the rest of your life helping to resurrect Heidegger's reputation, excusing his conduct, supporting his public denials of culpability, his unapologetic image of himself almost as a victim of the Nazi regime. You lent the full power of your rising prestige to his defense, shielding him from accusations of anti-Semitism because you were a Jewish public intellectual, without letting on that you were also his lover. How could you, Hannah Arendt, famous author of The Origins of Totalitarianism, despite the suffering she herself had experienced in the Nazi period, solely because she was a member of the Jewish people, a people who she cannot love, how could you forgive unrepentant Nazi like Martin Heidegger? Not try to understand, but forgive.
Forgiving and the relationship it establishes is always an eminently personal affair. in which what was done is forgiven for the sake of who did it. Heidegger's behavior in that 1 year, 1933 to 34, and the, shall we say, weakness of character that made some duplicity and lack of candor his rehabilitation strategy in the post-war years, none of that was of such a magnitude as to place him outside of the human community within which I believe reconciliation is always a possibility.
But what of your duty to obey orders given by your strict dedication to truth? Does that square with forgiving the unrepentant Martin Heidegger, who lied and distorted his record?
That came out of love and obeying the equally powerful commands of my heart, which were captured by the wild outlaw I met at the outset of my journey at the age of 18.
Let's welcome to the stage a brand new singer, only 18 years old. She's a freshman at Brandeis University up in Waltham, Massachusetts, and she's come all the way down to New York City's oldest folk song venue, the Bitter End Cafe. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, for her very first time on stage, Joni Earhart.
Wow, I am so excited to be up here, but bummer. There's really sad news. A really great woman scholar, I mean a great scholar who's a woman, Hannah Arendt, died today. I mean, we're reading her work this semester. I'm actually writing a term paper on her origins of totalitarianism. When I found out that she died today of heart failure, I was like so sad. A life gone. The alive part of her is now in the past, like my dad. Anyway, I'm rambling. I was going to be singing Joni Mitchell's folk song, Anathea. But when I heard Hannah had died, I thought, in her memory, I'll sing my song about her. So I rewrote Anathea, and it's called The Ballad of Hannah Arendt.
Martin Heidegger stole a stallion, stole it from the misty mountain. 12 years passed and now they've caught him, and in iron chains they've bound him. Word was sent to Hannah Arendt that her lover was imprisoned. Bring my fame and 6 white volumes. I will buy my lover's freedom. Judge of history, spare my lover. I will stake my fame and glory. You can keep your 6 white volumes. What I want are your sweet favors. Hannah Arendt, oh my sister, Are you mad with love and longing? The judge will rob you of your virtue. Yet he'll brand as horse thief your lover. Hannah Arendt did not heed him. Straightway to the judge went running on Mount Zion's bed at midnight. There she heard the glass booth building. Cursed be that judge I slept with. 13 years will I lie wounded. 13 jurors won't acquit me. 13 books cannot rewrite me. Hannah Arendt, oh my sister, come down from your misty mountains, there among dark German forests, Argos of 6 million memories. Martin Heidegger stole her stallion, stole it from her misty mountains, yet his lover Hannah Arendt sacrificed the true to forgive him.
What did we learn on our mission? I'll be your oracle. Let's just free associate. What did we learn? Izzy, will you lead off?
Something I connected to. It's a quote I read in a letter Walter Benjamin sent to Judah Magnus when he was still angling for that professorship at Hebrew University.
That was a Schrodinger road not taken.
Yet, in 1928, this is what he wrote. My translation work has served as a stimulus to philosophical and ultimately theological reflection, making me ever more clearly conscious of my Jewish identity. I would therefore look to Hebrew language and literature as a viable subject.
That's interesting, Izzy, but that's from books and writing, from your mind. What have you learned from your heart?
Like Walter Benjamin, I struggle with demons. I walk the snow-crust ridge line of jagged mountains, precarious balance. Step right, slippery slope to dark winter canyons. Step left, to delusion.
Yes, that's in the present, in the blazing intensity of currentness. But quantum time travel, Sufi dancing, Kabbalah, and drugs, bingo, we're off to the races.
How does that make you feel? I mean it. How does it?
Intense.
Alive.
Here, now.
fellow missionaries.
Is he ever tone deaf? No one likes missionaries anymore.
Woke are missionaries of a new religion, a new God that will fail. But I shall change my trope to use words of your time. Fellow visionaries, I learned from Izzy's books, from each of you. In my time, philosophers wrote of evil, though not of its banality. But your hard science, your higher math, information technology, not in our golden age. One example will do. The science of optics. Your eyeglasses work well. I'll take these lenses back.
I can tell you what I learned. Carpentry life lessons.
You make to learn to make.
How you make meaning now, how we made meaning then.
I'll tell you what I learned. Just be in time.
That's Heidegger's opus, Being and Time. I learned to see it and say it in Weimar Jew German.
Siri, translate being and time into German.
Sein und Zeit.
Who is Siri?
She's like your old invisible friend from childhood.
She's a cyborg golem.
An imagined woman.
Not golem, golemette.
But she's a really smart, well-behaved golemette.
We wanted to thank you, Titania. We couldn't have done this without your help as continuity woman. What have you learned?
A woman can be the equal of men in the workspace and still be passionately in love with men in the heart space.
You learned that from me?
I learned that from Hannah. Learned a lot from Hannah. Even though no prof today would ever be allowed to do what Heidegger did to Hannah.
But was Hannah a passive victim? She was totally in love, a consenting adult.
But isn't there, like, a difference in power?
I think Hannah got off on that difference in power. She was perhaps attracted in Heidegger to what made National Socialism attractive to Heidegger: power, intensity, theater, drama.
And Hannah was in it for the attraction of power too, the power of intimate drama.
Hannah in that glass booth? I feel like that sometimes. Alone, translation headphones, my life choices and experience on trial. I'm like Purim's Queen Vashti, commanded to stand naked before the king.
Miriam Bat Maimon, have we doctor-patient confidentiality? I stand naked in mind. Devora, Rambam's wife, desires my presence. I desire Cleo whispering in my ear. So I'm off on missions, escape to the future.
I'll tell you what I, as Anna, told Walter. It seems you're drawn to get what you want only when it is impossibly associated with the frustration of other wishes.
I also have a question, two. One, can a therapist be your friend? Two, can a friend be your therapist? I mean you, Miri. Can we be friends?
Yes. Now that we were Hannah and Anna, we can be Joni and Miri.
Walter's life was a real Trauerspiel, a spectacle of German sorrow. Walter didn't join the roster of professors at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, and I predict he won't join the roster of Rambam's future prophets in Cairo either.
How do you know? That's 9 centuries in the past. You can't predict the past.
10 digressions ago, I was on a journey.
And now you're just sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tides rolling in.
We sailed the sea of time. TimeShip Continuum. I'll tell you what I learned. I learned that quantum neuronal time travel works. Everybody, teach me to improve the process. Lessons learned. Visionaries, to sail the ship you must
Secure the mast.
Adjust the lines to trim the sail.
Focus lanterns of light upon maps of the world.
Study the map.
Names are important. Nouns are important. But so are verbs and adjectives.
And what have you learned, Dr. Maimonbaum?
Only that which blazes in its currentness is of future importance.
Salam alaikum, Alawi Yehuda ben Shmuel al-Sha'ir.
Salam alaikum, Ra'is. Shalom alayich, Devora. Ra'is, I'm afraid to say that our mission was a bust.
Were you not able to come to know these future prophets?
The operation was a success, but the patient died.
Each candidate had so much going for them, but they failed the threefold test. Walter Benjamin's focus on art and literature fed a powerful imagination, and his brilliant mind strove for intellectual perfection. But he lacked balanced moral qualities, and he lacked faith. Izzy, would you agree?
Yes, wicked smart, prophetic vision, but blind to his own heart, cracked under pressure.
And the woman, Hannah?
She was a true philosopher who strove for intellectual perfection, but she too lacked balanced moral qualities.
And she lacked a truly sympathetic imagination. I think I understand her, but I cannot forgive her.
In both cases, it was their hearts that led them astray.
Their heart were not with Israel's leaders, with the dedicated of the people.
I believe that is true, prophetess.
And do you, Yehuda, blame the Haskalah, the Jewish Enlightenment that began with Moses Mendelsohn's entry into Berlin in the year Takad 5504 for the failure of the German Jewish Golden Age?
No, Ra'is. And it was no failure. The Haskalah's criticism and commentary on Judaism was not just a defensive accommodation with the forces of assimilation, though perhaps for Benjamin and Arendt it was that too. But the Haskalah did not cause the end of the German Jewish Golden Age. That came about from outside forces, just like the Romans, just like the Almohads.
And just as your work, Ra'is, provided a necessary opening for the Jewish people to much that is good from the high civilization of the times that surround us, so too did the Haskalah. And the spirit of the German Jewish Golden Age lives on in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, in the study of Jewish history, and in the works of many thinkers, writers, and artists.
Then perhaps we should try again. Perhaps Martin Buber.
The work of the future prophets must go on.
But brothers and sisters, your mission was no failure. What brings meaning is the process, not the result, the journey, not the destination. I sent you to recruit new agents, but only as a means to make you part of the larger mission. By time travel, by seeing our future and your past, we are sharing in a common prophetic vision.
Prophecy is a form of history, future history. What will happen with interpretation?
And history is a form of backward-looking prophecy. What did happen, also with interpretation.
The future is only possible because the present engages in dialogue with the past.
Ra'is, what am I to do with all that I have learned?
Use the single point of view recording device known as text. Set down in writing what you hope will last, that which blazes in its currentness.
I have done that, Ra'is, in this play, which ends now.